In terms of laying out the elements of a crime, what does the prosecution want from David Pecker?
Prosecution wants David Pecker to establish the formation of the conspiracy. It's that unholy trinity of Trump, Michael Cohen, and David Pecker. And they, to Vaughn's point about sort of unspoken, unknown details, according to the prosecutors today, it was Trump who invited David Pecker to come to this meeting at Trump Tower in 2015. They were joined by Michael Cohen there. When we've seen that meeting described in public filings, Nicole, it comes across really differently. They say there was a meeting between Cohen and Pecker and a third member of the Trump campaign. We know from our colleague Tom Winters reporting in 2018.
Do we have that? Do we have Tom Winters reporting from the okay, we went back and we found, it actually circulated on social media. Tom Winter is a pro's pro, and actually probably the kind of reporter that lives in both worlds, right? That does talk to those kind of sources that know where people move and how they move and with whom they move. Not that you aren't, yours well, but let me show you Tom Winter. This is Tom Winter's live report on that day about that meeting and who was in it.
The first discussion of this so-called catch and kill comes up in August 2015. And so the Wall Street Journal reported back in November, and NBC News has now confirmed that, in fact, the other campaign official in the room is the guy at the head of the campaign himself, Donald Trump.
So that was established through NBC's reporting and others back in 2018. Just explain why that's important and why the characterization, I mean, the Trump telling people that know Trump know that he's such a maniac for the details. He cast a cabinet. He didn't like John Bolton's mustache. He doesn't like the walk-up music. But they have this alternate myth that he somehow floats around and doesn't know who's in his office tower. This was his meeting.
Yes, it was his meeting, and he's micromanagerial to a core, as you just noted. And the legal import of that is to show that Donald Trump had knowledge and intent to influence the 2016 election all along through the cooperation of the National Enquirer, to bury stories about him, to accentuate his positives, and then to write damaging stories about his rivals like Ted Cruz and Ben Carson. And, you played this portion of Todd Blanche's opening when he said, I have a spoiler alert. It's not a crime to influence elections. It's called democracy. Well, that's like saying, I have a spoiler alert. It's not a crime to lie. It's called the First Amendment. Except that there are instances in which lying is a crime, and there are also instances in which non-disclosure agreements can be criminal, where they are entered into for the purpose of unlawful in-kind or corporate campaign contributions or individual contributions. That is why Michael Cohen went to jail, not because NDAs are criminal, but because of the purpose to which those NDAs were put.
Harry, what struck me is that I know a lot's been said. I know Trump has access to excellent lawyers and by all accounts has a couple defending him in this case, as he should. But it seemed once again to be, as Lisa's saying, a political argument. And I understand you're trying to persuade 12 people to come to your side. But it didn't seem that they were going to dispute all the facts. They were just going to dispute what the definition of a crime was.
Well, that's exactly right. And this is where the political, the significance of this trial is the political and legal really do come apart. It seemed to me that Blanche was trying to make an argument that Trump was clean as a whistle, did nothing bad, and that's going to be very problematic once, for example, Stormy Daniels or Karen McDougal take the stand. You might have played this differently. You might have said, yes, he's a jerk, but not a criminal. And instead, perhaps at the behest of the client, they are actually taking the tack of, nothing could be, everything he did was clean as could be. And that's just going to be very, very hard to substantiate. And the sort of significance of Pecker is that all these things we know very sort of in a sketchy way become vivid and real and bring home. And I think it'll be extremely hard for Trump to just try to disavow the entire corpus that the DA is building. But that's, I think, the task they've taken upon themselves.
So our viewers are so steeped in all of this. I want to dive into the evidence at this point. And Harry, the Access Hollywood tape, we covered this last week. A transcript has been permitted. Let me show you some sound. The jury will not hear it, but I believe some of the transcript was already read into the record. So here's some of the Access Hollywood tape.
I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the I can do anything.
So that language, that belief by Donald Trump, which he actually reiterated in the E. Jean Carroll case, he still believes that. He believes it's been true for 1 million years, in fact, and he believes it today. It will be known by the jury. What is the significance of that coming into the story the prosecution's telling today?
That in addition to looking guilty of a crime, and there is a technical issue at the heart of it, he's going to look like a jerk and a sleazeball and somebody that they want to convict. And that's what's happening with the other witnesses as well. And if he really tries to, and by the way, how's he going to do it if he doesn't testify? But if he really tries to stake the claim that he did nothing at all, he never had sex with Stormy Daniels or Karen McDougal, he's also going to look like a liar, all three of those things. And so they're going to enter the jury room. Oh, and also they are playing it very aggressive with the judge, and I think we can anticipate some hard moments for Trump in front of the jury. You put those all together, when they enter the jury room, they are already inclined to construe evidence against him. He is really making himself out to be both unlikable and not credible, in addition to potentially a criminal.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.